I come to the floor today, Mr. President, to support the nomination of David Kostelancik to be U.S. Ambassador to Albania. For over 35 years, Mr. Kostelancik has served as a career member of the Foreign Service and a qualified and exemplary candidate to represent the United States in an allied capital. He also served in Congress as the Senior State Department Advisor to the Helsinki Commission. And like so many of our career Foreign Service officers, Mr. Kostelancik has dedicated his career to serving the United States at home and abroad. He served in Albania before, as well as overseas assignments in Turkey, Russia, and Hungary, where he led our embassy as chargé d'affaires for nearly 2 years. Most recently, he served as foreign policy advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. It is clear that we have a highly qualified candidate to serve as ambassador to Albania. But I also want to talk about why it's so critical that we confirm an ambassador to Albania and that we do it without delay. Albania is a real success story for American foreign policy. Just 30 years ago, Albania was waking up from more than 4 decades of communist rule. Today, Albania is a flourishing democracy, a fully engaged member of NATO, and an aspiring member of the European Union. And it was Albania in 2016 who answered our calls to take in vulnerable Iranian dissidents from Camp Ashraf. It was Albania back in 2021 who didn't think twice when they answered the call to accommodate Afghan refugees and SIV applicants. So what message does it send to Albania, a critical partner, a stalwart ally of the United States, that we can't confirm an ambassador for over a year? Albania is currently the only NATO capital in which we do not have a confirmed ambassador. And as the U.S. confronts challenges around the world, we need our allies. We need Albania. That starts with ensuring that we have the stewards of our bilateral relationships in place. And I can tell you, China and Russia have ambassadors in Albania's capital right now. It's up to the United States Senate to determine whether we cede ground to our adversaries. Mr. Kostelancik has the necessary experience. He speaks Albanian. He's eminently qualified to fill the post for which he was nominated. For these reasons, I urge no further delays in confirming Mr. Kostelancik's nomination, and I ask unanimous consent that the Senate consider the following nominations: that the Senate vote on the nomination that David Kostelancik be Ambassador of the United States of America to the Republic of Albania, that the Senate vote on the nomination without intervening action or debate, that if confirmed, the motion to consider be considered made and laid upon the table, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection? Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Utah.
Reserving the right to object, United States diplomats serve a singular purpose: to advocate for and protect U.S. interests all over the world. The Constitution makes abundantly clear that the security of the American homeland and commerce with friendly nations are fundamental core interests of the United States of America. The promotion of woke cultural imperialism is never in the core interests of the United States. The constant crusade of career diplomats to evangelize woke ideology on behalf of the United States often works decidedly against our interests and actively undermines the reputation and leverage of our nation. Like many Biden-Harris nominees, Mr. Kostelancik has proven unable to set aside his personal partisanship while representing the United States' interests abroad. His past performance as chargé d'affaires in Hungary should disqualify him from being trusted with diplomatic mantle again. Mr. Kostelancik openly meddled in Hungarian politics. He attacked press freedom and engaged in blatant social activism, which the Hungarian government viewed as undue interference in Hungary's internal politics. Mr. Kostelancik damaged our relationship with a reliable and important ally for the sake of partisan ideological advocacy abroad, all when he was essentially a placeholder until the Trump administration could nominate an ambassador. Now, the Biden-Harris administration wants to make him the permanent man in charge of the U.S. government's interests in Albania. The Biden-Harris administration had every opportunity to submit a new nominee for this position when Mr. Kostelancik's nomination was returned to the president at the end of last year. Rather than submit a nominee with a more favorable reputation, a less controversial background, and a demonstrated track record of focus on core U.S. interests, President Biden is doubling down and promoting Mr. Kostelancik. Cultural imperialism continues to dominate, to distract and destroy the reputation and effectiveness of our diplomatic corps. I will not be complacent in such efforts, and on that basis, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from New Hampshire.
I don't understand what my colleague is talking about in terms of woke ideology and cultural imperialism. That's not my understanding of how the State Department works. The State Department and our ambassadors are there to carry out America's foreign policy, no matter who the president is. And that's what David Kostelancik did when he was in Hungary. And so I'm perplexed by the arguments that are raised by my colleague from Utah. His objections are grounded in baseless rumors that are being spread by Viktor Orban. They are not grounded in facts. Here are the facts. Mr. Kostelancik received overwhelming support, bipartisan support, when he was voted out on 2 occasions of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And in the 35 years of Mr. Kostelancik's service to the United States government, he has never been accused of any political bias until Viktor Orban decided that he didn't think he was executing America's foreign policy properly. Mr. Kostelancik has served the American public faithfully across administrations of both parties. He's represented elected leaders' positions. I've spoken with a number of my Republican colleagues. I wish my colleague from Utah were going to stay so I could talk to him about this, because he's got support from those Republicans precisely for the reasons that I outline above. It's up to my colleagues whether they will listen to the recommendation of former administration officials and their own Republican colleagues, or take heed of the baseless allegations of a foreign leader who is ostensibly an ally, who's making false, unproven claims of impartiality. I've looked for evidence. There is zero evidence to that effect. In fact, I have letters here from former governor, Republican governor of New York, George Pataki. I have letters from the Albanian American Council in support of Mr. Kostelancik. And what's more, a number of senior Republican officials, including the U.S. ambassador to Hungary, who served under the Trump administration, have repudiated this claim. So I don't know why my Republican colleague today is willing to believe a government who has shown more loyalty to Vladimir Putin and President Xi than he has to the United States. Why my colleague from Utah is prepared to trust the repeated commitments made by the nominee and senior-level Republicans that he served in Budapest with the utmost professionalism. That's the question. Is he willing to trust that, to trust all of the people who have weighed in on behalf of Mr. Kostelancik, who, by all accounts, in reading his public remarks as chargé, defended the Trump administration policy ably while in Budapest? That's what ambassadors do when they're serving overseas. They defend the policies of the United States of America and whoever the president is and whoever the Secretary of State is. Those charged with the conduct of U.S. foreign policy are proud civil servants. They believe in our institutions, and they represent the American people no matter which party is in office. Mr. President, I am disappointed that what we have today is a number of people, a number of our colleagues who would rather denounce the United States and our foreign policy, who would rather oppose career ambassadors who have been in the job for years because they support Viktor Orban, because they are spreading rumors about what people have done that have no basis in fact. So I intend to come back to the floor on a number of occasions, whenever I can, to ask for unanimous consent again, because what is happening now is not in the best interest of the United States. When we refuse to confirm ambassadors, we are hamstringing our foreign policy. We are harming U.S. national security. Right now, there are over 30 State Department nominees who are waiting for Senate confirmation. And by grinding to a halt our State Department nominees, my Republican colleagues have allowed partisan brinkmanship to pervade a critical aspect of our national security. It's one I don't understand, because I know we're in agreement that the United States is threatened by adversaries, that Iran, that China, that Russia, that North Korea are all threats to the United States, and yet they're willing to allow President Xi's diplomats to get placed in countries all around the world, and they're not willing to let our own diplomats get placed. So I hope that, that they will reconsider, because what they're doing at its core is putting at risk America's national security. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.